Hello again. The BBC have now put up on iPlayer some of the very earliest episodes of Doctor Who from 1963. Well, as a matter of fact, they put up over 600 of them, but I don't intend to be watching the whole of Doctor Who all the way through John Pertwee and Tom Baker's days as well. I watched a few of the earlier episodes with William Hartnell in them. He used to be in the Army Game on the television years ago, a precursor to Bootsy and Snudge. However, I digress. I wanted to compare them with the latest incarnation of the programme. I remember watching the first episode of Doctor Who, which was shown the day after President Kennedy was assassinated. Goodness, how time flies! It seems like yesterday. We had been watching a science fiction series on ITV called Emerald Soup, which started early in November '63. And there was some debate as to whether we should carry on with that or switch over to the BBC's new series, which was being very heavily pumped in the Radio Times as being groundbreaking. And it clashed with Emerald Soup. I doubt that anybody remembers Emerald Soup these days, whereas most people are, I suppose, familiar with the BBC series Doctor Who. The most notable thing about the 1963 series, watching it now, is that although the special effects were absolutely dire and laughable, the dialogue was very sharp and witty and of a similar quality to a decent stage play. Watching the latest episode of Doctor Who with David Tennant and Catherine Tate, I saw at once that this situation had now been reversed. The special effects are absolutely superb, but the dialogue is atrocious. It has clearly been written by numbers, and one important purpose of the script is to remind people about such modern trends as sex changes and fussing about pronouns. These have obviously been shoehorned into the script rather than occurring naturally. The scene where the Doctor is reminded about pronouns by a transsexual looked and sounded like one of those old-time public service films. Clunk, click every trip. Don't drink and drive. And mind you remember to make your pronouns gender neutral. The new series has, of course, a black sex change case, and this allows us to infer naturally that Catherine Tate's character, a white woman, has been in the sack with a black guy. Another important box ticked, you see. The new Doctor will be played, of course, by a black homosexual. Another two important boxes ticked, and he was, moreover, born in Africa. A fantastic triple whammy for those concerned about modern sensibilities. It was perhaps inevitable that when the decision was made to have the new Doctor belonging to an ethnic minority, it would have to be a black person. Does anybody ask themselves why it was never going to be an Indian, Arab or Chinese actor? Of course, if parts in television dramas were cast in a colourblind fashion, purely according to talent, then nobody would have the least objection. But that is not what's happening at all. There is a protocol that black actors take preference over not only white ones when the major roles are being dished out, but also above Indians and Chinese people. I'm sure we all know this. The problem is that colourblind casting and blind auditions tend not to deliver the desired result. Take auditions for orchestras. In 1969, the New York Philharmonic Orchestra was accused of racism because they only had a single black musician. Everybody was white except this one guy. They were accused too at that time of sexism because 94% of the players were men. As a consequence, blind auditions were started so that the musicians being auditioned played behind a screen, which meant that those recruiting could not know the gender or skin colour of the player. Because of this, half the museum musicians in the New York Philharmonic are now women. Blind auditions were a great success. There is, however, still only one black musician with the orchestra, the principal clarinet player. There is no longer any question of racism, but it has made no difference. Black players are simply not of sufficiently high standard for good orchestras. I give a link to a piece about this in the description to this video. This is, by the way, a very common thing when blind auditions or blind recruitment are used. The same thing happens when applications for jobs are anonymised in a similar fashion. It works very well to the benefit of women, but not to black people. This is interesting, and I shall have more to say about it in a future video. But for now, I'll mention it is why you see so many black actors and so on the television. The procedure has been rigged. It's not colourblind at all. The whole thing has been prearranged, preordained, if you wish.